I've got my plastic bag with wellies in. You can also tell me how to record, and I've kind of put it on setting.
It might be worth. Yeah, I forgot my muff.
I've got a wind muff actually. Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Build a Theatre, a podcast charting the creation of a new theatre for Brussels by looking at the wider theatre industry. My name is Edward Macmillan. I'm the Artistic Director of the British Theatre here in Brussels, and this month we are doing something a little bit different. So we were invited to go and explore more the concept of outdoor theatre festivals by an organisation from where Phil and I are originally from, down in Dorset in the UK. And down there is a festival called the Inside Out Festival, which organises extraordinary events in extraordinary and ordinary places. And we went along to go and see, you know, what is an outdoor theatre festival now? What is the relevance for the local community? What is the relevance also for the local environment that it's in, and also for on the global scale? How can a local event really tie into what is happening globally? I don't want to say too much more, but just to say that we went along a few weekends ago in September. It was a beautiful weekend, and we will devote a few episodes upcoming to various aspects of this. This first episode will be a little bit of an introduction to the festival itself, and we will be talking with the event organisers, but I will introduce them in a second. For now, I just want you to listen in on a conversation that Phil and I had on the way down to the festival in the car.
So I got a very exciting email last week, Ed.
Yes.
You have launched the next bridge production, Grounded. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, we have. Very exciting news to get that published. Yes, so this will be our third main production, Grounded. It's an American play. It's kind of explores, the theme we're exploring with this play is how technology is influencing the ways in which we work, and how that then, how work life, professional life and private life kind of get blended, or how technology enables us to do more maybe, or that everything to do with technology, and how and by technology I mean everything from, emails back in the day to, obviously we've all lived through the Zoom experience of COVID, to then going forward AI and how that's changing things. So both retrospectively and in the future.
Hot topics of the day.
Hot topics.
You, I see you've also announced in the same message your prima artiste. A very exciting artiste. Can you tell us a little bit about who you've cast? Because it's another. Now, we've had this conversation 3 times. Is it a one-hander or a two-hander? It's a two-hander, right? It's a one-hander. I always get that wrong.
It's a one-hander.
Music for 4 hands at the piano.
Yes.
A play
Yes.
for 1 hand is a play for 1 person. Fine.
She does have 2 hands though.
She does.
Yes, still at the moment. Yes, very exciting. We're so happy to have a lady called Letty Thomas with us. She's a phenomenal actor. Yes, she's been, people may have seen her in things like Bridgerton or The Crown, both on Netflix. But she's had also a fantastic stage career as well to date. So excited to get her into the rehearsal room. The rehearsals don't start until mid-October.
And when are shows due to be?
And shows will start on the 8th of November.
Fantastic! This is very exciting.
Yeah,
well, we look forward to hearing
so
more about that.
We are at this stage now. We are here. Oh my gosh, we are actually here. We're going to have to leave this.
Approaching a man having a suit in a low slung
So
suit.
exciting.
We enter the site of Inside Out.
Yeah.
Dorset Fest.
Do you think we just continue past him? Hello.
Yeah, you're right.
We do just continue past him.
What are we entering?
This is so exciting.
So, dear listener, we have arrived at a rural location, what looks to have once been a working barn, farm.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to try and blag our way in.
Yes. Very exciting. There's lots of security here.
One of the great things about this event is is
I
it
think
seems
this
that
is,
everything is free. Like all the events are free.
Yeah, this is
Hi, are you okay?
Yeah, all good. Are you parking up with us today, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
So we're going to have you right on the end of this line here. I'll walk you in, yeah?
All right,
Thank
thanks. So Phil and I had an absolutely wonderful time at the Inside Out Festival, and we will give you a few more details of the festival in an upcoming episode. But for now, I wanted to give you a bit of background on the festival. So we sat down with a gentleman called...
I'm David.
David Doust, and he is from an organisation, well, he can tell you what organisation he's from.
So I work for an organisation called Outdoor Arts UK. We run a programme called Festival Focus, where we take artists and programmers and producers on go-see trips to various festivals around the country, and we have brought a cohort of 15 outdoor arts professionals to the festival to look at the themes of land management and ecology and environment. So there are people in our cohort dotted all over the place.
Okay, great. And we joined his delegates to talk with the co-artistic directors of the Inside Out Festival, Kate Wood and Bill G, on the second day that we were there at the festival. And they gave a really nice history and also overview of the kind of thinking that takes place whilst curating a festival on this scale. And I am basically going to now play you the interview with them in full, because I think it's rather interesting.
So, we have been joined this morning by the wonderful Kate and Bill, who are co-artistic directors of the festival. I was wondering, to start us off with, could you give us maybe a brief potted history of the festival?
Great, yes, I will do. So I'm director of Activate Performing Arts, and Activate Performing Arts has been around for 31 years or so, and we are producers of Inside Out Dorset. So, and that, our first edition of that was back in 2007. And Bill and I are co-artistic directors, and the festival started as a consortium of Dorset Theatre Promoters Consortium. So this was, we still chair this consortium, and it was, or is, Lighthouse, the largest art centre outside of London, in Poole, and a whole, Bridport Arts Centre, Arts Reach, Rural Touring, a whole number of different venues and promoters wanting to reach a different audience. And they'd done a sort of pilot in 2001, and that was in rural Dorset, and they hadn't worked in the more sort of urban locations in Bournemouth and Poole. So when we came up with the first edition, this was the first time that these venues had worked together. They'd not worked together with Lighthouse before, the other venues had, and this was the first time that we worked across this area. The two local authorities, or the three local authorities then, Dorset County Council as it was, Bournemouth Borough and the Borough of Poole, hadn't worked on a project like this. So it was a very big project. And do you want to talk about that experience, actually? Because that was quite interesting in terms of what you proposed to us.
Yeah.
We contracted you as specialists.
We had a consultancy fee to talk to a lot of people across Dorset, Bournemouth, Christchurch, and Poole, and sort of respond with what an outdoor arts festival could be for Dorset. And we were both very excited by particularly the people that we met, enthusiasm, and lots of this very special places in Dorset. So, one of the things we came up with was this idea of extraordinary events in extraordinary places. It sort of became a mantra. That it's interesting how that mantra is now, because it's sort of slightly shifted. And we came up with a couple of possible programmes, one which was very ambitious and one which was slightly less ambitious, and we presented them to the Dorset Theatre Promoters Consortium, and we also said, and we would very much like to do it, not just have done the consultancy, and we will work with you to help raise the money for this sort of ambitious programme. And people thought, yeah, that's great. Well, we'll do that. But we said, some of the key things that we said there was we think it should be something that only happens every 2 years. We'd sort of thought about timings, and we really felt that the autumn, September, was a good time. Partly because at that point, this was in 2005, there were actually very few festivals that happened in September. It was very much the end of the season. I mean, it still is in some ways the end of the season for many of the artists, many of the companies, but also very importantly in Dorset, people know Dorset is a big tourist county, and so we absolutely wanted to keep away from the peak summer period because it's too busy. And there was also another very special thing that had happened, which is in 2005. Remember that the Olympics happening in London was announced by the Olympic Organising Committee. And the Olympics didn't just happen in London. The second most important venue was actually Weymouth and Portland, because that was the centre for all of the sailing activities, which is actually a big part of the Summer Olympics and Paralympics. But that was also great because that everyone was on a bit of a high because of that in the county. They knew that the special light had been put onto it, and it meant also at that point how there were things called LEPs, which had money to invest in sort of significant development, and they were one of the funders. So I think deciding on September was a really key thing, and deciding to do it every 2 years was about thinking that actually to get the resources to do a festival that would have impact, you wouldn't be able to do that every year, and you'd be spreading yourself too thin to try and do everything. And then we put a lot of work into raising the money in all sorts of ways, working very deeply with the partners across the conurbation and in the rural areas. And we did the first 10-day festival, and I think 40,000 people came to it.
It really exceeded our expectations.
But also that then really set it up, that it could be a sort of serious contender. And very importantly for us, I think the project that we ended on in that first year was a project with a company called Red Earth, who aren't really making work now. They're a Brighton-based company that were very into making work very sensitively to the landscape, and we worked with them on. It was actually the equinox. It was the Sunday, like the equivalent of today, fell on the 21st of September, and they made an extraordinary piece on the top of Hambledon Hill, which is one of the many hill forts, and that meant even from that first festival we had to work very deeply with what we call land partners. So land partners are the sort of land guardians, whether it's the National Trust, whether it's the Natural England there, whether it's Dorset AONB, or we'll talk about it now, Dorset Wildlife Trust. So that was very important for us, that we put so much, as well as the work in the urban areas, we also had a really, really significant work in the rural areas, which, it was a rainy Sunday, which our production manager was very pleased about, because we'd had so many people visiting that we were really concerned that there would be too many people, but the rain kept people off, so we only had about 800 or 900 people that joined us to walk up this hill and experience a very extraordinary thing. So, yeah.
So from there, I mean, that sort of set a kind of framework really from how we've worked since there, which is always in rural and protected landscapes and always in urban landscapes. And more often than not, they are different locations. So we between sort of 4 and 6 locations each edition. So every other year, what that does is it makes it kind of distinctive in that we're not in the same place every year. It also makes it quite challenging for our marketing. If you have a festival where your audience and the public know it's going to be this place, this time, every year, you kind of, it's really helpful. The intrigue and the excitement that also comes with doing it in different locations is where are you going to be next? So that's really nice. And what we started back in 2007 was one of the key relationships we have with the Dorset AONB, the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, and we've worked with them, I think, since then on nearly every festival, because one location, sometimes two, will be in an AONB. This area is just on the outskirts of the AONB. It's quite. We have two. We have Cranbourne Chase AONB that takes part of North Dorset, and we have Dorset AONB that's quite a large area of the rest of Dorset, sort of south and the Purbecks, west, a part of north and central. So and they are interested in having a different perspective on the landscape and engaging different people in the landscape in an emotional way. So having that connectedness. So that there's been quite a lot of research done around connectedness to nature, and that the more you feel connected to it, the more that you will care about it. So that's been really important. So we did a quite a large programme around 2012 from the Cultural Olympiad, and then from there it went from a project that we ran on behalf of and with this partnership to one of the core things that Activate does, and it came into our funding agreement with Arts Council England back around sort of 2012, and that's been part of our core programme. And for us, it's a way that we are able to open the doors, as it were, to audiences and be able to kind of welcome people, engage people. And we also have throughout the year, even though this is the largest outfacing public programme that we do run a swathe of other things throughout the year. We run a youth dance company, we run an inclusive youth company that meets very regularly throughout the year. We do engagement programmes. So in the lead up, for example, to this festival, we've been doing a lot of work since we did a project last year in what we call our signature events. So since about 2018, we've been doing things in the alternate year, where we've had the opportunity from an invitation or a national project like 1418 Now, or last year where we did Green Space, Dark Skies with Walk the Plank in Dorset. From there, we've been running projects throughout the year in the lead up to here about going out into the dunescapes with National Trust and working with a lot of children and schools, and so it's all part of connecting it to an invitation to hear.
I feel like yesterday the cohort got almost a perfect snapshot of what Inside Out is. We were at Bear Regis and we got intimate landscape, really like beautiful, delicate work, and then we went over to Weymouth and we got huge, thousands of people parade, and it's that perfect juxtaposition of those big urban engagement versus this really intimate relationship with landscape and land.
Yes.
I just wondered if you could touch on, you talk about building relationships and how obviously you've had to build those relationships in order to work in new spaces, but a really lovely example of that is the parade that you did last year with Pexos, is that the right pronunciation? Saruga, yes.
Yeah.
And the success of the 2021 parade, and then the Weymouth Business Improvement District saying, oh, we don't want to wait 2 years for you to come back, we'd love for you to come back again. So I'd love you to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, yeah. We have Weymouth and Wimborne and Poole business improvement districts. They're dotted all across the countries, and a lot of them are really interested in engaging with artists and cultural organisations. Primarily, it's about animating their towns and getting footfall in, because they have a budget through their levy payers, and the levy payers are the businesses in the town. And in Weymouth, in particular, when we worked there in 2021, we brought Sense of Unity, which is a show that we're actually touring as well. We've been touring for 4 or 5 years.
We created it at 101. I think it was it 2017 or 2018? It might have been 2018.
Yeah.
Which brought together. It was just in the year. I think it was 2017 because it was still relatively close to the Brexit vote, and Sense of Unity. It was the idea to work with 2 European companies, one from mainland Europe and one from this island that we live on, and to bring them and Sense of Unity. It's sort of the messages on the side of the tin. So a large-scale nighttime parade bringing together Dundu, who a German puppet company that have a very beautiful illuminated puppets, and Spark World Beaters, who many people will know, who are an illuminated, very good drumming group from Whitley Bay in the northeast, and that was, it was a lovely show, and weirdly, we didn't present it for 3 years. We didn't present it in our festival till 21. We would have presented it in 20, but of course we didn't do a festival in 20 because of the COVID. But that was a phenomenal success. It got thousands out. It got the headlines, front page of the local paper saying this must happen again.
Over several days, front page.
Yeah, and then literally we had those calls on the Monday, like the equivalent of tomorrow, saying this must happen next year, both at that point from bid, but also the town council, because there are 2 unitary authorities across Dorset, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, Dorset Council and BCP, and so some of the town councils have also got sort of a level of delegated budget and are perhaps more important than when there were district councils. So in that first year, they both worked together they wanted to, continue that. So we then worked to bring Saruga with Pexos.
Yeah, which again was. I think because they'd seen Sense of Unity, and it is a town that has a carnival, has had a carnival, had a carnival for years and years, and they were like, oh, this is like the carnival. We line the road, and this is what we do. And we're saying, no, come with us. This is a slightly different thing. So they said, come back, because they were. We were saying this, this is great. This is happening in Weymouth. This is, we don't normally have this sort of work in Weymouth. We had worked in Weymouth previously, so they invited us back. We came with Peixos, and first night we come out, the streets are absolutely lined, and it's fantastic and it's vibrant, and it sort of feels like it's taking over the streets, and people are saying, God, this feels like, some people say, this feels like I'm in France. They just take over the streets. So this is that was fantastic. And then again, come back next year. Which is great. They're wanting it to be, and it's part of what their own program, which they're calling Dawn to Dusk. And so they've invited us back again, and you experienced it last night. So.
Which of course means that they want a particular thing. So as programmers, we're then set. It would be very hard to, suggest something that's significantly different. But at the moment, it's been great doing this series of three shows.
Yeah, and we invited at our last festival, 2021, to our launch. We had Luke Duran's Gaia, which we installed. Actually very beautifully in Moores Valley Country Park and Forest, and it looked beautiful in the day and at night time, and we invited lots of different people to come to the launch, including the Wimborne Business Improvement District. Wimborne is quite a small market town in the east of the county, and they have a huge folk festival there, and they're wanting to have more things happen, so they invited us, and they have a much smaller budget, and it's the first time they put
sort of the sort of money they put into it this year into it happening, and we had a circus and street arts program there that was really beautifully received, and then we worked with the pulpit. So we have 3 business improvement districts we're currently working with.
What's been really evident in the work that we've seen over a couple of days is like the time and the depth that's involved with those pieces, and everyone's kind of said like we've been really supported by you, and so I wanted to just talk about your relationship with artists and how that works for your particular festival.
Time and depth of engagement, having relationships that go back a very long time, so say I think everyone experienced the works in Moors Valley, so say Sea Flood, which is the new work that we've been able to help Helen Ottaway make. We presented Helen, we actually presented Lacrimé in the festival in 2014, which was in an incredible place. But then, that started our relationship with Helen. She got, so she was selected in 2013, so it's a 10-year relationship. And then we kept in conversations, and we've been we get into networks because we know there's interesting opportunity of working with people. So one of the networks we got into was called Sura Madura, and it was an international residency space in Sri Lanka, and we got they raised a big whack of money for 3 years from the Arts Council of England for artists to go there to have 6-week residencies, and we'd put up a number of artists. You've actually seen work from them all. So the 3 artists that we sort of sponsored were Helen, Suva Subramaniam, who's the artistic director of Academy, and Lorna Rees, who you saw as a performer yesterday working with Collective Walden. But with Helen, that relationship was, her mother had just died. She thought, can I go? And then I had a conversation with her saying, well, maybe it's absolutely the right time to go, because you're going to a place which is also has an incredible sense of loss, because it was one of the places that was deeply affected, with hundreds of thousands of people killed in the tsunami. And so she went and she had a residency, and then the idea of a requiem, which at that point was stemming from her personal loss, sort of started to emerge. And then along that journey, it's weird, isn't it? But we were doing again one of the signature projects in 2019 was presenting Luke Jerram's Museum of the Moon across 3 venues in Dorset, and we managed to also have, well, we didn't manage, we actively wanted to do more than just presenting Luke's work. We wanted to have an associated programme and training around it, so we could do some sort of associated commissions, so then we could support her to do very small work, which she did with her long-term collaborator, the amazing singer Melanie Pappenheim. So and we have worked together, putting in funding bids. I introduced her to Orchestra of the Earth, who she then worked with to record the music, the sort of the musical part. So it's an example of, yes, exactly that, deep and long and committed relationships, and when things, when things aren't easy, like you get a no again for a funding application, you keep going and you work with the artist to sort of reshape what is possible and keep on that journey.
I think also with the newer relationships, equally ensuring, so all of the work that we either have commissioned or are presenting, we have, if it's new, obviously we haven't seen it, but we'll understand, and spend time with the artists understanding what the thinking is and how they want to approach it. And some of those are, with Soup and Story, are new relationships, and it is actually ensuring that we understand the intention and the sighting, and we get that right, because it's best for absolutely everybody, and the experience that people have is a positive one, because then it comes out in the work. And we'll have seen with the other work. So with Duo Chaos, with the street program, Duo Chaos, Chris Iris, Satchcop, they're artists that we haven't worked with before, but we'd seen their work. We knew, where it would work best. So it's understanding that and spending time knowing what will make the work the best it can possibly be, and then also making sure that when we're on site that we've gone through all of the tech spec, we've gone through all of that, but then it's absolutely properly cited for the audience experience for them. And so that's really important. Is really important to us, because it's what we'd want ourselves. When being hosted, that we can do our best job.
But I would say, an interesting thing for people to think on about that is that, say, if you think of the amount of not admin time, but producer time, admin time, to do a show over in Weymouth for 3 shows, because they did Friday night, they did a Saturday lunchtime show, and that, I would say that would be about 10% of the work to play to an audience of 15,000 people, as the work we've done for Wild Woodbury. So you have, it's not about numbers there. It's that's an interesting thing in terms of, that we want to support artists who are making, I suppose, what I would call work of depth and work of relevance to very specific sites. So, in our funding, then we need to be making those multiple arguments. But, we were both really pleased, because we'd had to cancel some stuff midweek because of the awful weather. But both Kate, we were really relieved that...
We cancelled one thing.
Yeah, no, we cancelled things on Wednesday because it was shit weather, through the day.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So, but we're really pleased that we have all, so our numbers will be fine, because we had 15,000 people to see the shows in Weymouth, which, is great. And it was such a sense of fun and joy I found when I was there on Friday night amongst that audience. So, yeah, but it's very different.
I might make a tiny addition, just so for context, on the 2021 festival I worked as a volunteer manager, so I kind of got a little bit of behind the scenes experience. And another thing you do is simple things like in 2021 at Simonsbury, all the artists were in really lovely accommodation, and you went out of your way to make sure the artists, just on an accommodation basis, were really comfortable, and you prepared the welcome baskets.
Yeah.
And there's those little flourishes and those little touches that make artists feel cared for and welcomed, and build that relationship. And I think that's another thing that other festivals, for a variety of reasons, maybe aren't able to do. And there's probably a reason why when people come and work with you, they want to come, they want to keep those long-term relationships, and it's just tiny things like that will definitely make an impact on an artist experience, for sure.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think it isn't easy fundraising. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of time, and you have to contend with a lot of no's, and again a lot of relationship building, because seeing where people are supporting you, and being able to help you to raise that. But it is important to have those things, because if you're performing, you've got to be able to sleep well, eat well, make sure that you've got the right amount of protein, to be able to do some of the work, or and then and again extending that, to the audience. It's about being, the most welcome you can be, and you did an absolutely lovely job of doing that as a volunteer manager. Really welcoming, really warm. All the pieces to camera that you did, which is great. So yeah.
interesting what you were talking about there in terms of what we saw yesterday being a really beautifully, carefully curated space for quite a specific, I guess, quite local audience who would intentionally go to sort of see those pieces. We're probably already quite, I guess, I would say, engaged with arts and culture in comparison to what you were saying about Poole and Weymouth. And I suppose it's just, for me, it's just really interesting, that kind of multi-layered approach that you've taken. And I wonder if that's kind of been intentional, something that's kind of grown through the festival, and also how you approach that, I guess, with Thunders, like with those kind of multiple kind of messages and multiple, I guess, kind of, are there kind of multiple objectives as well?
There are, but I think there's always been a desire, our desire is that there's a cross-pollination and that there is, and that's always been the desire. And then I would say it's become more than a desire, it's become something that we invest in and that we put real money into supporting different people to get to, to Wild Woodbury.
And I might be wrong, I don't know that, I mean that's a part of the question as well, is kind of what kind of audience profile do you see, like a space like, yes, Wild Woodbury is, because for me just looking at the kind of, obviously yes, it looked quite different, I guess, but I might be wrong, so I'd be interested.
Yeah. Go on, you go, because I just said something.
Yeah, no, we know that there was an engaged audience there yesterday, but we also know from people who were in the audience who do know some of the village who are saying, oh, it's good to see these people who I wouldn't expect to be there as well. So it was a smaller audience than obviously you experienced in Weymouth. So in some ways you get to see, which you can quite clearly do because you probably recognise some of the people there as well. From he used to work with us. So you'll know that there were quite a number of people, and we were hosting other professionals as well. And we did put on coaches running from Poole and running from Dorchester.
Which didn't work.
Yeah.
Which was
you have to keep trying.
£1,500 of money, you could say, was it worth doing that? But we'd worked with coaches last year on our signature project, and it did work, but we didn't have the money, the thousands of pounds to pay people to do the outreach work to get those people onto the coaches. Which is last year in the Green Space Dark Skies, we did a very deep level of work, which meant we had a very diverse set of people that weren't audience, they were participants in the event that we did last year. So it's interesting learning, and it was actually interesting because we were talking about that with the group, two of the collaborating artists, Isaiah Dreads, who was doing a set yesterday afternoon, and Subramaniam were two of the creatives involved in that piece last. So we had a session. It was great actually to be reminded of that, and then thinking through those things. Why actually, when the two coaches arrived, and there's a couple of handfuls of people rather than 50 people, because we recognise, one of the things is that transport, if you're not a car owner, and it's the weekends when National Rail decide to do work so the trains aren't running normally, we wanted to support people, but it's more than that. And I think the other thing, I think I did mention this to you, Kate, is I think last year, when we went to Simmonsbury, which is in West Dorset, we had a star. We had a star attraction. We had Gaia placed a 50-minute walk up a hill in a wood in an incredible location.
I remember saying to people, are you sure you want to be pushing your pushchair up some of those hills, especially after some of the rainfall as well, and people were so determined. They were like, nope, we will be going and engaging with this work. And we were like, are you they're doing all of that, are you absolutely sure it's a walk, there's hills involved? And they were like, no, we will. And it is that almost that star pull that gave people that motivation. I'm conscious that you have a final day of the festival to run. I think we've just about hit time. Just wonder if anyone has any kind of final, maybe quick questions.
Practical question maybe for the artist here, if artists who might be interested in making a connection with you, starting a relationship, what would you think is the best approach? Like for example, do you post call outs for commissions, or would you really say
come and see your
I
work.
would like to see the
You
work.
invite us to your work, and maybe we'll, we get invites to hundreds of pieces of work, so maybe we will, but you will say, I was one of those people, when you send the email, you won't just send it to 20 people, you will say, oh, Bill and Kate, remember I was the one that asked that question, so come and see my work. And then it's a small chance we might, and then, it's just a reality, but,
Yeah, no, that's really useful because actually there's different approaches and different festivals have different ways of like.
Yeah.
We have done some open calls, but we also are very conscious of the amount of wasted effort it means. If you get 80 people responding to a call for 3 small commissions, you just think of the amount of wasted time. So we're very conscious of trying not to waste artists' time.
Artist time, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much.
Indeed, thanks a lot to Bill and Kate and all the organisers of Inside Out Festival. It really was a great weekend for Phil and I. As I said, we will be covering more of the artists that were involved in future episodes. Phil and I absolutely loved this experience, and if there are any other theatre makers, enthusiasts, creators out there who would like us to come and see what they're doing and perhaps cover it on the podcast, feel free to get in touch at any time. That's all from us for this month, and see you next time.